You are watching Profunda TV with host Phyllis Haynes.
We know through processes of adaptive intelligence that robots will learn to be more human every minute. But how will we thrive as humans in this extraordinary shift in AI capabilities? There are increasing predictions about the coming of the time when technological advancement will surpass the capabilities of humankind. Some refer to this as the singularity, a term derived from Albert Einstein, who first used it as a way to describe the theoretical characteristics of a black hole, where the gravity is infinite and where nothing can escape, not even light. For now, the singularity is increasingly used to warn us about the point at which artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence. The famous British physicist Stephen Hawking, passed away in 2018, warned, "Success in creating AI would be the biggest event in human history. Unfortunately, it might also be the last, unless we learn how to avoid the risks." Bill Gates writes, "It is already here." This is from his blog, March 21st, 2023. Then there's the possibility that AIs will run out of control. Could a machine decide that humans are a threat, conclude that its interests are different from ours, or simply stop caring about us? Possibly, but this problem is no more urgent today than it was before the AI developments of the past few months. So what does this mean for humans? How do we thrive during this enormous transition? In order to survive what can be called one of the biggest shifts in humanity, I submit that knowing our individual selves at the deepest level is key to surviving and dancing amidst the chaos that will ensue. According to chaos theory, chaos occurs when there are major shifts or transitions. This is a major shift and transition. Confusion, mistakes, responses to misinformation, accidents, and conflicts have already occurred with the rise of the global internet. AI can take this even further. We must be informed from various sources as much as possible. One of my mentors and Fulbright scholar, Dr. Howard Frederick, often referred to the concepts offered by Dr. Herbert Schiller, who wrote about the unequal flow of information. He was concerned that corporate entities would control who gets information and who does not, thereby contributing to a divide. The information haves and information have-nots. That sets the stage for chaos. The internet was supposed to solve this problem, but as Schiller predicted, corporate ownership increasingly controls who gets information. So what is a human being to do? Change is definitely upon us. Chaos is a natural byproduct of transitions. The first step is to embrace and understand the nature of human beings and get to know yourself fully. The Socratic wisdom, know thyself, is more crucial now than ever, because what you think you are and how you will be in this world may be up for grabs. For a simple example, will a baby be more inspired by a highly entertaining robot than the simple teachings coming from his or her parents? Parents are already competing with cell phones and laptops. Recent events aided by internet misinformation and manipulation have led to huge human errors, assaults, and conflicts. It can get worse when one's values are being dictated externally. If AI becomes increasingly the source and regulation of society, then who we are as individuals and as a collective is important. Here are some suggested steps that I recommend based on my reading and understanding of what is coming. Take time to reflect on your history and what you want for your future. Write in a journal or blog, someplace where you can always go back and find your notes about yourself, your views, and your values. Listen to yourself and identify your own voice in your head, not your parents, not your friends, not your media influencers. In my television career as a daily serious talk show host and news correspondent, I had to learn ways to develop rapport and ask questions that would get answers.
In the treatment of it.
Yes, she's an award-winning producer and former ABC News correspondent.
As technology brings us new ways to create life, a countless number of legal, ethical, and moral debates will have to take place. Phyllis Haynes, ABC News, New York.
A particularly positive or accurate response. Not that you were wrong, Mr. Butthurst, but I asked were there any diplomatic successes, and when we think of diplomacy, we think of treaties or new agreements. Have there been any diplomatic successes at all, Mr. Salisbury?
I don't think there have been in that sense. I think Norman is right in one sense that if you take the objectives of the Reagan administration, and one of them certainly was for the deployment of missiles in Europe, they have achieved that.
Some of the techniques I learned helped me to listen deeply to the guests and also to myself. Here is my practice almost daily. Silent meditation. I ask myself questions and then quietly, without distraction, I wait for the answers. The answers are always new and reinvigorating. Interviewing yourself is a helpful technique for discovering who you are. It will take time and practice to listen and recognize and separate out one's own harsh self-judgments, fears, and inaccurate perceptions. And over time, this practice of listening to oneself will be a profound experience, helping to know yourself at a deeper level. The AI revolution can be more accurately described as a paradigm shift, like the development of the Gutenberg press, the airplane, the mobile phone, and the internet. Artificial intelligence will present a myriad of choices and voices and unforeseen configurations. That's my personal prediction. So being fully grounded and in alignment with your true self will help you protect the quality of your life. Identifying mentors, both living and deceased, whose ideas and guidance you trust will also help. These mentors can be in books, publications, and other sources. You do not have to know the mentor personally, but their guidance is and must be in alignment with your sense of self and values. Ask yourself key questions. Who am I? What do I really want? Be informed. Read or listen to audiobooks and articles. Make a list of who you trust. Be willing to check back again and again on validity. Don't worship any source. Here are my choices to date to arm yourself with helpful information. A wonderful book called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Harari. It's a great telling of how we became the humans we are. Limitless by Jim Quick offers real, tangible stories and practices for effective personal development and learning. Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book is a classic already. This book gets rid of the old-fashioned notion of self-discipline and offers better ways to accomplish goals. The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman. The coming wave talks about the good and the bad that AI might have on humanity. The good and the bad effects that AI might have on humanity. Again, from Bill Gates, advances in AI will enable the creation of a personal agent. You'll be able to use natural language to have this agent help you with scheduling, communications, and e-commerce, and it will work across all your devices. Because of the cost of training the models and running the computations, creating a personal agent is not feasible yet. But thanks to the recent advances in AI, it's now a realistic goal. Some issues will need to be worked out. For example, can an insurance company ask your personal agent things about you without your permission? If so, how many people will choose not to use it? This is just an example of why I say knowing yourself and self-preservation will be intertwined. This is what drives me as a writer, speaker, and broadcaster. I can't sit by and see our world change without bringing along as many people to understand this time of transition and how to navigate those waves of change and chaos. Please join me in taking time to go deep into learning about yourself and what it means to be human before it's defined and altered by clever artificial intelligence.
You are watching Profunda TV with host Phyllis Haynes.
Hello, Tim. It's great to talk with you. How are you?
I'm amazing, Phyllis. Thanks for having me here.
I think you're into something very interesting and very different. Can you give me an idea of what is Foundations for the Future about?
Gladly. So we're a nonprofit built around this idea that until space is boring, it's not going to be real. Nobody founds a company on the ground and says, I'm a mountain company, I'm a swamp company. They say, oh, I'm building a sewing company, a technology company in this area. And space still seems wild and crazy, and so it's not real. And what we're trying to do is remove those barriers, whether they're mental, financial, or the infrastructure piece, and develop ways to make space boring enough to be routine for the rest of us, because I'm tired of not going to space.
Okay, so your company is based on the idea that, well, looking at you, you're young enough to think about going to space. I'm probably not going to get there, but this seems to be, you and Elon Musk have this dream about space. So what's the specific thing? Are you interested in colonizing Mars, for example, or the moon? What's your thinking?
My thinking is, so I grew up in Alaska. I was born and raised in Alaska, and we in the state modeled ourselves as the last frontier. And that always bothered me because I'd look up at the night sky and think, but there's more. And so my dream is, whether it's, colonizing Mars, the moon, or elsewhere, it's humanity needs a frontier. We need something next. And that boundary of the new and modernity and civilization has always been what kept society moving forward and advancing. And space is the next promised dream for area to do that. And I mean, all jokes and hyperbole aside, I've got 2 kids. I want a future for them. and they like space. One of them really likes space. Her first art project was a space elevator. And so I'm doing this, and the whole organization is in part an ode to this, that this is their foundation. And how can we set the pieces in motion to be ready when the next generation goes up and out?
Okay, so that's reasonable. But now, there's a great guy named Buckminster Fuller who's no longer with us. He used to say, "This is space." He used to say that, we have this whole fantasy of leaving Earth and going into space, but in all actuality, Earth is sitting in space. So can you so when you have your meetings for Foundations for the Future, which you have a rather sizable organization, what do you talk about? What's the common dream? I mean, yours is to expand the horizon for humanity. I got that.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of mistakes in the expansion of our horizon. There's even mistakes going on right now in space.
Mm-hmm.
So are you guys talking about what we ought to be doing to get to space?
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because early on in our formation, there was a lot of talk about how do we, skirt around the things we've done wrong, or not talk about the icky things, whether it's burning rockets to get to space in the least environmentally conscious way of doing it, or the sort of imagery of only old rich white dudes going to space. And I said early on, look, we have to lean into this, that this is not that way. We have a chance to do this right. Every time there's been a frontier in human existence, we've exploited some group, ranging back to when we were coming out of the caves and emerging. We always exploit, and that's what humanity has done. And now we have a chance to change that model and to open up a frontier where the people going have risk, but they're not displacing or taking from someone. And so we do want to figure out what have we done wrong and are doing wrong, and how can we make that right in this new frontier. And more importantly, as you mentioned, we're flying through space on this ball of water and rock. How can we make what's up there work for the rest of us? Because otherwise, we're just jumping into life rafts and running away. And that's the last thing I think we need as a civilization, is to be thinking about. Instead, let's harness this new area of science and human habitation to work for us on the ground, like GPS has done. There's opportunities from space-based solar power to be able to create new ways of generating electricity, places to put industry that can allow us to transform our home into a place more suitable and equitable for the people who are not really interested in going to this new place. And that's fine. Let's make it better for all of us.
That's a profoundly interesting idea. I mean, even Bill Gates has recently announced his desire to create a kind of blockage of the sun to tone down the rays coming here to Earth, warming the Earth. So lots of people are thinking about it. It does seem very far out. What's your friends and family say? Do they think you've lost your mind, or are they on board with you?
It's probably an even split. The ones who think I've lost my mind aren't ever sure that I had it. And the rest are excited and love this idea that there can be a place where those who want to challenge have it. Those who want a place to learn can find it. And most importantly, that the work I'm doing here can open doors for communities that have lost hope. I just got back from Savannah, Georgia, and before that it was Akron, Ohio, talking about how those towns can be in this new space economy. And I like the reaction you had. It was surprise, and that was the same they had. They're like, we're not space towns. It's exactly, but you are good at what you do. Savannah being a huge port, Akron being a manufacturing place, and explaining this is not like the internet where we are going to tell you, go learn how to play a video game, old man, old lady, and then you can be a real player in the economy. No, no. What we do here on the ground, we need you to be able to do for and in space. So let's take that expertise that is honed over generations, train, work, and let's do that for space. And you can do it now. You can do it big. And the eyes light up. There's excitement. It's like giving kids Christmas presents, because they realize all of a sudden they have the potential to regain the pride of place that they had a generation ago that maybe they didn't think would ever come back. And that's so much fun to be able to deliver that message.
That's a very interesting approach to some very difficult problems. But let me give you the biggest one of all.
Yeah.
Hey, you're talking to a full American, you're a full American. Now, there's been a race for space.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying that your idea is meant to be the way Americans get a hold of things in space? Or are you talking about a global approach?
Ultimately, it's going to be global, because as we mentioned, we're on this rock flying through space. Anything we do up there is going to affect everybody here on the ground. And so as we're working towards, whether it's infrastructure for space, a workforce for space, there has to be an understanding that this is being done and will benefit everyone. We're a US-based organization talking to the US Congress. And so when we talk to our partners in Europe, in South America, we say, look, this is not America only. We're starting here because this is where we live. But we want your views, your ideas, because that's going to make it better. Ultimately, we want a system where there is a free exchange of information, ideas, and commerce, and not one that's dominated and controlled by any single organization or group. And that's what we're scared about when we look at China or Russia, because it's not that we want to beat them and keep them out. I personally am concerned that that would mean we don't have the same opportunity and that our partners around the world don't.
I think that's a great deal of foresight. And like many people, people can't see as far ahead as you do. And that's true. I mean, if we don't move, we may be the ones left out of space or the development of space. Now, there's also the whole area of the militarization of space, because I can remember a couple of presidents, and I'm not naming any names, but who go back even before our last one, wanting to militarize space. I'm sure it's already going on. So what do we do about that? How do we solve that problem? Because funding seems to flow easily. Like if you were the organization to create the best defense system in space, you probably have no trouble fundraising for that.
That is the most true statement that will be said probably this whole time. And you're right. So I personally am a medically retired Army officer, and I talk all the time about how the military is often put in a position where things need doing. I had 5 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, And a lot of the time, there was, whether it was rebuilding, diplomacy, or training, that was not military specific roles. It needed doing, so we did it. We didn't do it well necessarily. We didn't do it bad. But that's just the mentality of the military, is when we go somewhere, we're going to do what we can to make things better. And so if we depend on Space Force in this case to build the basic roads, rails, power systems, and sewers of space, they will. But that's not good for them or for the rest of us. We need a military to defend us, just like we need NASA to push the boundaries of what's possible. Now, here on the ground, we've got dozens of agencies doing the rest, whether it's commerce or transportation or agriculture. In space, you've got NASA and Space Force. It's not a lot of options. And so militarization is a concern for me. And one of my common talking points on the Hill and off is there needs to be another organization that helps promote the civil development, not just the science. We need that. But if we tell NASA, you also have to run a hotel in orbit, that takes time away from doing amazing scientific work elsewhere and not helpful. So we need that organization that can come behind NASA and develop what they explore, and that can go ahead of Space Force and create what then they can secure. And that's what's missing, and what we are trying to create through new federal tools for the space economy.
So let's look at some of the positive outcomes. You've answered that really, really well in a thoughtful way. The space station, the International Space Station, has had its own difficulties and it's had its great successes. Have we learned anything from the International Space Station? Have we learned anything that's helping you in your development of your projects?
Tons. And I am not the qualified one to even fully go into the things we've learned scientifically. But from an interoperability, international partnership side, that is a model for how space works well. When we started that project, we were talking to the Soviet Union and saying, we're going to live in space. We're going to build a colony in space permanently with you guys that we were trying to kill 10 minutes ago. And that's persisted for decades. And we've added to it, expanded, adjusted, and been able to cooperate in ways that never have we seen on the ground, especially when conflicts have arisen. We've still been partners up there. And I think that is a perfect model of setting up a separate consortium, for lack of a better term, between agencies and organizations devoted to space, and saying, look, this is off limits from our fights. Our whatever is going on is going to go on, but this is happening over here. Let's let it. And I think we should be looking to export that down. How can we use that as a model for other important work, whether it's vaccines around the world, whether it's health related or food security related issues? Build them off in their own walled place and say, look, this isn't a bargaining chip anymore. We're going to play here regardless.
I see that. So it's the vision of it is really beautiful. That you're thinking about this in ways I haven't heard before.